Hi everyone, it's May, and my book, The Gate, the Girl, and the Dragon, is now out. I am so excited, and I hope you are too. It's my first original middle grade novel in over 9 years. If you liked any of my other books, like Where the Mountain Meets the Moon, I think you'll like this one too. We worked hard to make it as beautiful as possible. The first printing of the book even has spreads. If you'd like the book with the spreads, best to get it now while the first printing is still available. You can get it anywhere books are sold, but participating indie bookstores have a special small print that you can get with it. Please spread the word. And please stay on after our episode. You can hear about one of the real-life inspirations of the book. I hope they help you enjoy The Gate, the Girl, and the Dragon even more.
Hi, I'm Alvina Ling,
And I'm Grace Lin.
and we're book friends.
Forever!
We're childhood friends,
Who grew up to be
a children's book editor.
and an author and illustrator. Yay!
Welcome to Book Friends Forever. This is the editing middle grade, The Gate, the Girl, and the Dragon episode.
Check out our website, bookfriendsforever.com, and our Instagram handle at bookfriendsforever_podcast. And check out our new YouTube channel, also at bookfriendsforever_podcast. Alvina, how have you been?
Oh, I've been okay. I actually ran my half marathon on Sunday,
Yay!
and it went really well. I felt really good while running. I will say I almost didn't make it to the race on time. Because I was taking a car and then I forgot that like roads close, including my own road, because the half marathon goes on my road. Um, so I was like, why is the car taking so long? And why is it sending it on this weird route? And then all of a sudden I realized, oh my gosh, it's because they can't get to me. So I had to contact the driver. I said, oh, I forgot about the road closures. I'll meet you. So it was kind of a
Uh,
adventure, but I made it basically like right in time to go into the corral. And it was fine, but I did panic
that's
a little.
good.
And then I'm like,
It
you
gives
know
you the
what?
adrenaline.
Yeah. And I'm like, you know what? If I miss this race, it's okay. But I did not miss the race. But yeah, I did. I ran it in 10-minute, 20-second miles, which
Wow, good
is
for
faster
you.
than
That's
maybe that I've ever
awesome.
done. So
That's really good.
yeah, I was listening to an
Yay.
audiobook the whole
Uh-huh.
time. Sloane Crossley's Grief is for People, which is a
Oh,
memoir about
that's
two kinds of loss that she
uh-huh.
had. And she works in publishing. So actually, my friend Allison told me about it. She used to be a publicist for Vintage on the adult
Oh.
side. So there's some publishing gossip in the book as well. So
I find that I run slower when I listen to audiobooks or podcasts. If I listen to music, especially fast-paced music, then I
mhm.
run faster. So interesting that you ran fast with the audiobook.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I never run with music. I always run with podcasts or audiobooks. So that's just how I run. And I think because it was a race, there was just a lot of people running.
Mhm.
So it just made me run faster. So that's good. I think other than that, I don't know if I mentioned this last week, but I've just been feeling kind of blah. And
Yeah.
I'm wearing my This Is Terrible shirt. This is terrible. Keep going. Um, but I realize it's because I need a vacation and I haven't taken a vacation. So I did. I'm taking the last week of May off, and Stephen and I are going to Turks and Caicos,
Nice. I
which
know
I'm
you
very excited about.
last time you mentioned you were going on vacation, didn't say where you were going, so that's
Yes, so we
exciting.
decided, we booked it, and we're going to bring Stephen's mom with us.
Oh, that's so
And so she
sweet.
was so excited to be invited, and
Oh.
I think she really needs to get away. And I
Yeah.
remember both of us, we'd had big trips or
After,
trips
yeah, our
after
partners
our
passed.
spouses
Yeah.
died. So I think this will be good for her. She did just come back she did took a trip to Arizona by herself.
Yeah.
But I think this will be really nice.
I don't know anything about Turks and Caicos.
So I went when I was in high school. My
Uh-huh.
mom, I think it was with my mom's work, like she had a trip or something, and I just remember loving it. I mean, then was we're in an all-inclusive resort, maybe
Hmm.
like beaches or one of those.
Hmm.
And it was you had a swimming pool that had the swim up bar. I don't even think I was 21, but I thought it was so cool to just go up to a bar and order virgin pina coladas while you're in the swimming pool. And the water is so beautiful.
Mm.
So I've been wanting to go back. And Stephen went, I think he like went for one day for some reason. I don't know if
Uh,
he was on a cruise or something. So it's just a place that we both have been thinking about going. And so, we were thinking maybe going back to the US Virgin Islands, but then we
mhm.
thought, let's try something different.
New and different.
Yeah.
Yes. A novel life.
So yes, I'm very excited about that.
Yay.
Um, yeah, and we did karaoke, which is always fun. I feel like I need to do more fun things, but
Yeah.
this vacation will definitely
Yeah.
help, I think.
Yes. Definitely. That sounds
How
good.
about you? How are
Um,
you?
Good. I can't remember when last time we talked, had Hazel come back from Puerto Rico?
No, I think she was
Okay.
still in Puerto
Okay,
Rico.
yeah. So Hazel came back from Puerto Rico. She had a great time. It was lovely. She's like, yeah, she drank from a coconut, which she was like the highlight of her trip, as well as seeing a purple Cybertruck. That was like a big topic of conversation. Like a purple
Okay.
Cybertruck. They all were making fun of the purple Cybertruck. They were like, did they paint it purple to try to hide that it was a Cybertruck? Things like. Anyway, that was a big joke in the troop. I don't know. And so that was lovely. And so she came back Sunday, and Monday was her birthday. Um, so we Monday was her birthday. She had school, and we had her book club, the book club that I've been reading, the Gate, the Girl and Dragon too. And so instead of reading and doing crafts, we did the old-fashioned red egg hunt, which was fun. And we had ice cream cake. And for her birthday, we got her. So I asked her what she wanted for her birthday, and she listed all these really wild things. Like she wanted like a life-size like a life-size stuffy of this anime character, and I was like, I don't think we should get a life-size stuffy anime character, but like all these things. But one of the things that she put on her list was she wanted like a Japanese snack subscription box, like
Oh,
those
fun. Yeah, we
she's
had one
like,
of those.
yeah, she's like, I want anomalous snacks. She calls them anomalous snacks because, and the weirder the better, because she likes to bring them to the school. But I looked at a couple of them, and the monthly ones didn't seem quite what she was looking for. Like they were very beautiful. I think she was looking for weird, so I went to this place called Boksu, and they had this thing
Mhm.
called the largest snack box in the world.
Wow.
And so I got her that. And it's really big. It really is the largest Japanese snack box from Japan that I know of. And it's like really from Japan. Like I thought it would be kind of like Pocky, where it's like you have English on one side, of the ingredients and Japanese, but no, everything's in Japanese. And so like we have no idea what any of these things are. Like I'm trying to Google Translate, and it just says like yummy, yummy, delicious. Like, and I'm like, wait, there's an
That's a
octopus.
surprise.
I'm like, there's an octopus character on the cover, like is like holding this sign. I'm like, it must be some kind of octopus puff, but there's no like octopus anything in the ingredients. I'm just like, I don't understand what this octopus is doing here. And all it says is yummy, yummy, delicious. I'm like, okay.
So, did you try it and what was it?
It, the thing is, it tasted good. It just tasted like savory, like a savory puff, like so I
Yeah,
really,
yeah.
but we were trying to figure it out for the vegetarian friends,
Oh,
like
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
so they just decided not
And
to.
I guess Alex couldn't risk
Yeah,
trying
we didn't want
anything.
to risk
The
anything
nuts.
like that. So yeah, so that was good. I got my hair done. I don't know if you can tell, I
Ooh.
colored it to
Oh,
be
yeah.
cherry cola. But
Cool.
and I think she cut my bangs just a little too short, but that's okay.
No, they look good. Yeah.
They're like, I guess when you get your bangs cut, like you like when they're first cut, like they're so short. But then they grow in and you're fine. So that's been exciting, but it's been really, really, really busy. I leave for the Asian American Voices highlights retreat tomorrow. And then from there, I go straight onto the book tour for the Gate, the Girl and the Dragon. So I'm just trying to get everything all tied up before I go. I've been signing the pre-orders at my local bookstores, and I did the free virtual, I mean the virtual visit that with the Carl, like so if you pre-ordered the book, you get the virtual. I did the virtual visit, like all the things. I've been like just trying to juggle everything and get everything done before I go. But hopefully I get it done. And if I don't get it
Uh,
done, I just
yeah.
don't get it done.
But I guess we should mention that we are going to take 1 week off
Oh
of this
yes,
podcast while you are on tour.
yes.
So everyone take a break. Go follow Grace's tour.
Yes. Come see me in person instead. That'll be lovely. All right. So that is
All right.
how we've been doing.
That's how you've been. Okay, so I guess in honor of your new book coming out, and we've been meaning to do this for a while, more of a, I guess it's kind of part of the publishing curriculum
Yeah.
series of, we wanted to talk about how we edit and revise a middle grade novel
Yeah.
together.
Did we do picture books? I feel like we did picture
I
books.
thought we did, but now I'm not
Or
real
was that one
sure.
of the recordings that got lost in I feel like we recorded it and then like during a time when recordings would get lost. I don't know. I feel
Well,
like
I
we
don't know if it got lost, but I know we talked about doing this and then the pandemic happened, so it's
maybe that's
possible
what it
that
is.
we delayed it, but I don't know. I feel like we did do picture books, but
Oh
maybe
well.
not. If we didn't, we will do picture books in the future. How
Yes.
about
And then you can
that?
hear it all about that again if we haven't
Um,
done it.
yes, but maybe to start, we're not going to do a tell me about segment this episode. So why don't you tell us about your inspiration for The
All right.
Gate, the Girl, and the
Girl and the
Dragon?
Dragon. So, I have been uh practicing my elevator pitch for this book, and I was practicing it with my hairdresser while we were waiting for my hair to turn red. And so I'm like, so this book, here's the elevator pitch. Tell me if it works. So this book, it's kind of like the Asian American Narnia, but instead of the wardrobe, it's a Chinatown gate. And instead of like the kids going into Narnia, it's like if Mr. Thomas came into our world. And in this book, it's the spirit of this lion statue that comes into our world. So that's the elevator
Oh, I
pitch.
think that's great. That's
So
perfect.
so that has been that I've been working on that for quite a long time. I've been so I feel like that's the elevator pitch. What inspired this book? That's really hard to say because there are so many different inspirations for this book, and I don't know how other authors work. Like sometimes I think one authors get like one big inspiration and that becomes the book. And that has happened to me before too, where it's like one inspiration and that kind of is the like genesis of the whole thing. But this book really was like lots of like little ideas, like popping like little seeds, putting the dirt here, 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 and they just kind of like grew together until it finally became the book. So I guess I mean, the one that I tell people is when Hazel was 4 and we went to the Chinatown in Boston, and there was the two lion statues in front of the Chinatown gate. And I said, look, that lion's holding a ball. That lion's holding a lion cub. And she's like, oh, and she's patting the lion cub. And I was like, that would be a great book. So maybe that's the starting point of it for me. But then, all
Do
the other things
you,
came in.
yes, do you remember how long it took you to actually, when you actually sat down to write the book, how long it took you to write it?
Well, I mean, I feel like I might not be a good example for people, but yeah, so I we signed this book up in 2016, right? Um and
I did not check that, but that
you know,
sounds
we
sure.
we signed I checked that. So we signed this book in 2016 and but a lot of things happened. And I felt like I needed to take a break from novels. I changed gears to picture books. And then and maybe that was good because as I switched gears and that's when all these other like little seeds that we were talking about got planted and grew into this book. So but when I finally decided like, okay, I'm gonna sit down and do this. Gosh, I don't know. I feel like in 2017, I kind of started like a really, really rough outline of it, and then I put it away and I never touched it until like I don't know, like 3 years ago, like 2.5 years. Like how, when did we? I don't know.
Well, you sent me the first draft in September of 2023.
Okay, so yeah, so it would have been. I bet you in early 2023 is probably when I finally sat down and like, okay, let's
Okay.
let's get this thing going.
So it took you about 9 months, maybe.
Yeah, it's
Hmm.
but it it doesn't seem. I mean, I was just at a book launch last night, Jacqueline Davies, for her Lemonade Wars book, and she was saying like, oh, had to change her novel to a graphic novel script. And she's like, oh, it took me like 3 weeks, and I was like, 3 weeks, like that's it, like that seemed really fast to me. Um, so to me, when you say it's about 9 months to do the first draft, like for me to send it to you, and that seems really fast, but it's not really that fast because it's like from 2016. Like the way I write is that like I like to get everything pretty much like I know where like I like to think that I know where everything's going to go so that when I sit down
Yes,
and write I can just write it, you know.
because
So
you're a plotter.
I'm a plotter and a pre-writer and a pre like everything. Like I need it to be all set out before I
Mhm.
can sit down and do it. So yeah, so 9 months plus 8 years.
Okay, so you sent me the first draft on, it was September 29th,
Oh,
2023. And so what I do generally is when I get a first draft, I'll look at my calendar and see when I feel like I can slot in editing the book, because as listeners, watchers know, because I've said this before, I generally edit on the weekends. So I have to make sure I try to have at least 2 weekends where I know I can work on consecutive weekends, ideally, that I can know I can work on the book. And then I'll let you or the author know when to expect edits. So it could be anywhere between 2 weeks and 4 weeks is kind of what I plan for. In this case, I ended up getting you edits by September 13th.
ah,
So that was actually pretty fast.
yeah.
I don't know why.
We
Um,
we were probably trying to make some kind of deadline.
yeah, I think we probably had an idea of because for this one I knew we wanted to get it into copy editing around February 1st, I think, which
Hmm.
we missed a little bit, but I think we kind of like roughly figured out how many, you know, how many rounds we would need. So I
Hmm.
got you edits on mid-October. So I guess I should tell you talk about how I edit. So
Yes.
and I've done blog posts about this, but I will say in the ideal world, but then I'll say what maybe actually happens. So in the ideal world, I have that first fresh read where I read it all through and have that first impression. And then I go and actually make comments on the manuscript. So for me, I make comments on the manuscript every round I edit, which I think is maybe not typical of every editor. Um, Unless in that fresh read, I feel like I'm going to recommend like that the author completely rewrite the whole book, change
Mm.
the plot. But
How
if
often does that happen?
it happens very, very rarely. Like
Ugh.
it, honestly, I think it's only happened once,
Okay.
which I've talked about,
Yeah.
but it was with Wendy Mass's The Candy Makers. That
Hmm.
was the main
Which,
time
yeah, I
that
remember.
happened.
And then when you
Yes,
did it, it was a huge success, so it
yes.
was worth it.
Right. So generally I'm able to still kind of make like, I use track changes and I'll just put comments. Um, and I don't usually line edit, but I realize I kind of line edit along the way every single round, which means by the final round, and I'm not really doing really in-depth line edits. But if I notice something, like if I notice that a sentence is clunky or,
Mhm.
or I fix typos if I see them. I just have to do that because that's just how I
So,
work.
does it bother you when an author sends you a first draft and it says something like "good description will go here," or
No,
or
it doesn't bother me.
doesn't bother you, like it doesn't
No,
throw
and
you
that's
off or anything like
pretty,
that?
yeah, that's pretty typical. I mean, I think what's more difficult, and this also, but it's fine, I'll go with it, is sometimes I'll have authors that say, in this chapter, this is what's going to happen, but they haven't written it yet.
Uh-huh.
So, that's fine. But, I feel like when it's not complete, then
Hmm.
I'm not editing it to the
Hmm.
fullness of my abilities
Yeah.
either. but it's fine. And I think sometimes, whether it's just the deadline that we've worked out together or, I understand why that it comes in that way.
Yeah.
Did yours come in that way? I don't
I
remember.
don't remember if I did it for this one, but I feel like I've done that in the past because I bet you I did do it with this one because especially if I'm not quite sure if the plot is all holding together, like
Hmm.
I don't want to sit down and write like all this description. Oh, if you're like, no,
Yeah,
no, no, not this scene.
right.
And
Yes.
but not also, yeah, also when you're writing, you kind of just want to keep going. And so
Yes.
sometimes I'll just be like, description will go here, nice
Yes.
description will go here. Something more poetic will go here. Oh, I do that a lot. I do know for I'll put in
Yes.
brackets better. I'll write it better later.
Right. And if that's the case, of course, I will just wait until it gets better. So I'll go through the manuscript, I'll make the comments. If I notice something like that I'm consistently commenting on, or I feel like it's more of an overarching comment, I usually have a Word document open and I'll take notes in that Word document at the same time. So I go all the way through and I'm looking for pacing, for plot, if the plot is believable, characterization, um, and especially for fantasy, a lot of world building. Like, does
Mhm,
this actually make sense in
mhm.
this world? And I
Yeah.
feel like that was what we worked on a lot, for your book because it was
I
a different world.
yeah. So I remember in The Gate, the Girl, and the Dragon, not only was it the world building, but I remember the character of Jin. You really wanted him to have like be even more fleshed out. Like to me, like I was like, oh, he's this kid that has like la la la. Like it doesn't matter that it doesn't make sense because kids don't make sense. And you're like, no, 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 it has to make sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me that goes to believability. Like I
Yeah.
really wanted to understand. Well, so I pulled up my first editorial letter, and when it came to, and it's funny, the first draft Jin was actually
Yes.
GJI.
J.I.
So I said, so I don't want to give too many spoilers, but I think we need to see how G convinced Lulu to leave the worm's home
Yeah.
while the worm is sleeping blah, 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 blah. I said, did he actually have a plan? He seems to just wander aimlessly
Yes,
after
that's what the
that.
thing, because I was like, no, he's a kid. He doesn't have plans. Kids never have plans. They just wander. And you're like, no, no, he needs to have a plan.
Yes. And then I said, I'm not quite sure I can believe that he decides to just leave because he doesn't want to have to call his father and be embarrassed, shamed in front of everyone. I
Yeah.
imagine he would be desperate for help.
Yeah.
And so I said, he seemed so unwilling up till then to do things on his own and take control of his own fate, that
Yeah.
it didn't feel earned that he would run away, aside from how impulsive and immature he is, which I think
Yes.
you're like, he is immature and impulsive. Um, so yeah, so I'll read through it, I'll make the notes, and then I kind of just go through and I look at my notes to make sure they all still make sense because sometimes you have a question about something that is actually answered later,
Mhm.
and sometimes then I just delete it, or sometimes I say, oh, you do find out later that this
Yeah.
happens, but you might still want to tweak it here or that
Yeah.
kind of thing. And then when I'm looking through my notes, I also continue to add to my editorial letter, which just includes more or overarching themes. So I usually structure my editorial letters by themes. So in this case, I did world building, characters, and then I kind of listed out the different characters, and then I did plot. And for this one, that's all I did. And
Do you do
but
other things for other books? What are some of the
It depends
other?
on what things need. So I guess sometimes it might be, sometimes I'll call out the ending or the
Mm,
beginning, like if I
hmm.
feel like those need specific work. What are the other main things? Pacing. That's a common one that I'll call out and maybe expand upon what I mean or
Hmm.
what I think needs work. Um, what are the other big buckets? You know, it's very individual for the
Yeah.
the book that I'm editing
Yeah,
and what
like
it
in
needs.
The Year of the Dog, it was description. I remember
Right.
that.
Yeah, like add 2 to 3 descriptions per page or something.
I remember that. But honestly, nowadays it probably would be it'd probably be good to have so little description, but you know, things are
Yeah,
different.
it depends on the book.
Yep.
Um, and then when I write my letter, I usually talk about how the letter has to start with praise. It's like the praise sandwich. It's like
Yes.
praise at the beginning and at the end and in the middle. It's like what
Hmm.
you need to do. And then I always include, I don't know if I did this for you because maybe you already, I actually don't think I included this for you, but I almost always include the, remember, this is your book and only make the changes that you feel that you agree with and that you feel comfortable with. And,
Yeah,
then
yeah,
this is my opinion only and
yeah.
et cetera, et cetera.
So as an author, getting an edit letter, it's so interesting, right? Because you for me, I know in my head that this is good, this is important, this is like we're on the same team, like it's all those things like in your head. But when you get the edited letter, you're just like, "Rah!" Like
I mean, it's probably like getting a bad review, right?
yes, it's like getting a bad review, exactly. So, but it's better because at least you can fix it. The bad thing about a bad review is like you can't change it, right? Like the good thing is like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, at least we can fix this. But so whenever I get the edit letter, I always just let it sit in my inbox. Like I don't open it. I just like it like until I'll like look at my email, be like, am I ready to open that yet? And then like I always like let it sit for a little bit until I think, okay, I'm finally ready. And sometimes I pick the right time and like to open it and like it's fine. And but every once in a while I'll pick the wrong time to open it and I'll be like,
Yep.
and that's what's so weird. It's like you just never for an author, I'm never quite I think this is the right time. And I hit it like I think I've gotten better over the years, but still like I would still say I'm just a little bit above passing like 65% of the time I'll pick the right time. Where it's like, okay, it's fine. Let's go. Let's do this. So
Yeah, and I've heard that's pretty common. I mean, I know Barry Lyga, who I've worked with, he always says that he's like really angry for about a day,
yeah.
and
And
like
then yeah,
paces around his apartment.
yeah, like don't talk to me for like for a week while
Yes.
I stew this over. And but it is really interesting. I because I always go back to when the sea turned to silver, and um I got Kaysen's critique, and I remember getting so angry at it and so mad at it and so like rah, 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 rah. And then like and then like 2 weeks later being fine. I'll try like I'll do it and I'll show them that it doesn't work. And then I was like, oh, this really works way, way better. Like this is really
Yeah.
actually
And that was, I
this is so much better than before.
Jason, was my assistant at the time, and we had just had an internal workshop on line editing.
Uh-huh,
And as I mentioned, I don't really line edit in the
uh-huh.
way that other editors line edit, where you really are looking at each sentence
Yeah.
and how the sentence crafted. And I think in part I'm not an author, so I do not deign to be
Uh-huh,
able, unless I don't deign to be able to rewrite this at the sentence level.
uh-huh.
So for me, my my way of line editing is to highlight a sentence that maybe seems clunky, and I'll say clunky, clunky question mark, or this feels a little awkward, or
Uh-huh.
and maybe on occasion I might suggest how to reword it
Mhm.
if it's maybe it's confusing or it needs clarification. But I had challenged Kaysen to do the final line edit. I often did that with my assistants because since I don't line edit it, I was like,
Uh-huh.
you can line edit that. But I think you had never been line edited like that
Yeah.
before. So I definitely understand why you reacted that way. And then I think Kaysen was like newly empowered to really line edit. But also Kaysen is a writer themselves
And
and a
they
really
and
beautiful writer.
honestly they're a beautiful writer and they did a really beautiful job. But it's been such a lesson to me because I remember how upset I felt and then how like after I did it I was like, wow, this is like so much better now. This book is like it was such a humbling but experience.
So, um, So okay, so then after when you do tackle the edits, how do you tackle
Um,
them, the revision?
you know, I read the letter and then I go into the actual manuscript, and then I
Manuscript?
just start doing all the adjusting all the comments and stuff. I sometimes I the big mistake I make is sometimes I get so into all the comments and all the weeds that I forget the overarching
Mm.
issues, and then I don't address it, and sometimes I don't know if I don't know if I've caught myself every time, but very often I'll like send it I almost send it back without taking care of the larger issues because I got so into like all the comments, but that's how I do it. Ideally, it's supposed to be that I read the letter and it's supposed to like sit in the back of my head while I'm doing all the small things. But I would say 90% of the time I just completely forget and I just like get in the weeds. And then I have to go back and then do the big stuff again.
I think this might be some like I remember doing a panel with Justina Chen at a
Mm-hmm.
SCBWI conference about revision, and I remember she said that she likes to tackle all the easy things first as well, and then the bigger.
It's not so much easy. It's just that because when you go in and it's like the comments are right there, it's like it's laid out for you. Like this needs to be fixed. I'm like I can fix that. Like these, it's like it's
Yeah.
almost like little technical things or like little like it's little problems that you can fix. Where it's like you have an overarching problem. It's like that's a like I don't know.
Right.
like um, and
That's
that take
harder.
it's harder and that takes a lot of thinking. I remember for the Gate, the Girl, and the Dragon well, the big thing is I needed to raise the stakes, right? Because I needed to raise the stakes so that Jin really felt like he was in a tough spot, like where he didn't like if he were to call his father, he would lose a lot. He would lose everything, and like, and I couldn't figure out how to do it. And I remember I was just about to fall asleep and it like all of a sudden it came to me like, oh, the bell, she's stuck in the bell, and so if he uses the bell, he'll be stuck. And I was like, oh, and I was like, ah. I remember like it was like I was like, ah. So it was like a really funny situation where all of a sudden I was wide awake. But I remember one year for a resolution, I said that I was going to try to use the dream journal to try to help me write, where you come up with, where you have the problem and you write it down, and then supposedly your subconscious works on it. And
Mhm.
in the morning, you're supposed to come up with, you'll have a solution. Um, I did not do the dream journal thing, but that's the closest to that kind of thing where he's like, guys, like I'm falling asleep, and the subconscious is like, I got it. So that's how
Yes.
I figure out the overarching problem. I hope my subconscious wakes me up.
Mhm. Well, and I think when I edit, it's the same thing. And that's why I like to try to have that initial fresh read through and then let it sit for a couple days because I do feel like sometimes in the thinking about it, you come
Mhm.
up with, so even if I guess that my shortcut now is that sometimes I will just edit, like I'll edit at the same time as the first read, which isn't ideal, but at the same time, I still try to pause after I finish and think about it and as a
What I
whole.
find interesting for you, okay, because you're
Mhm.
editing more than one book at a time, right? Like, do you find it like I find it really hard just to keep one book in my head and to figure out how it all works? Like, how do you do it with so
Well, I won't, I edit one novel at a time.
uh
So I'll do so even if I have, say, I have two first drafts in my queue, I'm not editing at the
Okay,
same
at the same
time.
time.
I'll do
Okay.
one first, get that
Yes.
off my plate and then do the
Okay, that
other.
makes sense.
Yes, I can't. But I am often editing multiple books at different stages at the
Hmm.
same time. So when you send me the revision, I know some authors keep the track changes on but I like to just accept all changes, delete all comments, and
Uh-huh.
start every round. I just read fresh.
Hmm.
So, and I don't know if that's the same with other editors, but so I'm like each round, I'm like treating it like its own thing. So I think it's okay if I didn't remember. I think it's okay if I didn't remember what I asked you to do or
Hmm.
what,
Yeah,
I'm just
because then
like,
it does,
is it
because
working as a
yeah,
book?
yeah.
Right.
No, that makes complete sense. Yeah, that makes complete sense. I was going to go back to the idea of like editing more than one book at a time. And I realized that I have friends like my friend Kate Milford who writes like three books at once. So I think there's probably other editors who like do it
Yeah.
like one or two
I mean, I
books.
will read multiple books sometimes at the same time. Like maybe
Yeah.
I'm listening to an audiobook, but I'm also
Uh-huh.
reading a physical book at the same,
Yeah, I have
kind
a
of at
hard
the
time
same
with
time.
that.
I mean, when I was a kid, I would do that all the time. I would have
It's
like three different
true.
books, and depending on where I'm in the house, I'm like, oh, there's that book. Let me read that one. No, but yes, I do. I don't switch back and forth with the editing. It's just one book at a time. And I guess I'll also say that I feel like my job as an editor is to really point out the things that other readers will take other readers out of the story, or
Mhm.
that took me out of the story, because I feel like if it took me out of the story, it'll probably take some other reader
Uh-huh.
out of the story as well. And I am trying to anticipate the things that a reviewer might say, for
Yeah.
example.
Yeah.
Um, so yes, so you sent in your revision. So in this case, you sent me the revision on December 8th. So you took
Hmm.
almost 2 months with
Uh-huh.
it, because I think there were some meaty things for you to figure out.
Yeah.
And then I turned around the edits very quickly again by 12/22, because I think I wanted to get it off my plate before the holidays.
Yes, that makes sense.
And then you sent in a revision on February 8th.
Uh-huh.
And there was still some sticky, I remember there was still some just sticky, like,
Yeah, I
plot
remember,
things.
yes, there's like a like the whole there's so the whole issue that I just mentioned where I came up with the idea like that raising the stakes. The stakes were just not high enough. Like I kept raising it a little bit still wasn't high enough. It was like, and I think it was like that last revision. I was like, I finally like, okay, that's a high enough stake, like where he's like, no, I can't go back home, kind of thing. So,
And I do remember, and I feel like you talked about it on the podcast at the time, is you didn't feel proud of the book yet,
yeah,
and you were
yeah,
worried that you
yeah.
wouldn't.
Hmm.
I think that was a New Year's resolution, was to
Yeah.
feel proud of the
Yes,
book.
because yeah, that makes sense because look, the revision wasn't in until February 8th. Um, and so around that time I was probably really struggling because it was like the stakes were it was just like it didn't like I said, the stakes weren't high enough. So it was just like, it's not really like it doesn't have that punch that you need it to. So it was probably that final revision that finally got it to be like, okay, it works now.
Yes. So you sent it at 2/8, and then by 2/20, I sent kind of a final round, where
Yeah.
I call it like the cleanup round, or kind of line editing, but not really. And then you sent the final manuscript on March 8th.
Yes.
So, yes.
And it's always that final manuscript is always I remember I had sent it to my friend Kate Milford. I sent it to my friend Laurel Snyder. And I remember I can't remember how many, it was it was pretty it was at least 10 pages longer, and I remember saying, this is too thick. I don't want it to be this thick. Like cut anything you think is extraneous, like and be brutal. Like and I had them like cut everything that that they felt like could be cut. Like and it's like really good to have friends who will do that for you,
Mhm.
because I couldn't do it for myself. I guess that's what it is. You love your writing so much, like I can't cut that, and then I see their line. I was like, okay, I guess I can. So
Like, I guess I have to. Yes. I remember the last round I was suggesting cuts too.
yeah.
I should also mention that I usually I think having those fresh reads are really important,
Mhm.
because if we've gone back and forth a couple times, I think we're both very too close to it, and
Yeah.
maybe we knew where it came from,
Yeah.
it's not quite where it's going. So I think that at this point we had a desk editor named Lily, and
Oh
I
yes.
brought her in on one of the rounds. Um, so I can't remember if it was the second or third round in this case.
Yeah.
But I'll usually bring in Crystal, my assistant, on a round as
Yeah.
well.
And I remember it was interesting because and I'm sure Lily's a fine editor, but like um I she, it's she, right? She goes by she.
Yes.
Okay. Uh she had put so many edits in as well, right? And but since my experience with Kaysen, I was like, okay, these seem a little annoying, but you don't try it anyway, So, but I remember I was like doing every single one that she did, and it was like so many. And it was only like and that's when the manuscript was getting really bloated. And I realized, oh, you know what? I think she's putting these in just as suggestions. Like, yeah, I
Right.
don't have to take every single one. And so that's when I started thinking, like, I could just like not take that one, not take that one. And so that was more of a growing thing for me of like, okay, um,
Yeah.
let's just use my own judgment of which I
Right.
should take and which I shouldn't.
And I
So
guess that's the advantage. We often get asked, how is it working with someone that you're so close to? And I always think it's the trust thing is there.
yeah,
And so you trust that I have your best interests in mind, and we're both working towards getting the book where it needs to be. So I think we already had that, but also I don't know, I feel like we do have a shorthand in a way.
yeah.
Like
Well,
my letters are not very formal.
well, I
And
feel like when you make suggestions, even though I might not like them, I usually take every single one of your suggestions. I can't think of any time specifically that I haven't taken your suggestion because I feel like but whereas when you get the second reader,
right. Like you don't have
sometimes,
that trust there and you don't
yeah,
know
because I
them.
don't know them. I've never met, like so like I'm not so I don't know if I should take their suggestions and I don't know how they're suggesting where I feel like Lily was just putting every kind of suggestion out there, which it's fine. It's like it's good to make people think. But I think I was used to you where it was like this like do this, like where you take every single one. And and like I said, I
Yeah, and that's the thing. Every editor has a different
it's a
style.
style,
I think
yeah.
every writer has a different style
Mhm.
too. So,
So, but
yes. So that's how we edit.
yes, that's how we hit it. And then it becomes a book.
Yes. Some of the things that have changed over the years is I remember when we first started working together, it was editing on paper.
I love that.
I know.
And the sticky notes.
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
such a hard time with track changes because
Mm.
I write using Scrivener, and I don't even
Oh,
use
right.
Scrivener in the way that you're supposed to use Scrivener. Like there's so many apps and things that you could do with it, but I just use it so I can keep all my chapters separate. So like if I want to go
Hmm.
to chapter one, it's very easy to go to chapter one, chapter two, chapter three. Um, Whereas in Word, it's all just one. Bleh. And so like if I want to go to chapter three, I've got to search for chapter three, but sometimes it doesn't find it. So I've got to just scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll. It's like a mess. And then, when you have all the track changes and I don't know, I'm not a fan of Microsoft Word, but we've used it for forever. So
Right. And unfortunately, I think every publisher uses Microsoft Word, and we use Microsoft Word for the copy edits
yeah,
too. So,
it's like it's not,
um,
we're always going to be stuck with it, but I still
yes.
don't like
Yeah.
it.
I mean, now that we're talking about it, we could edit via Google Docs if you want.
That's true.
Within the Google Doc. I don't know. I don't know if that's better or not.
Yeah, I don't know. But the good thing about Google Doc is we could do it live, which might be bad.
Right. That's funny. Um,
Fortune cookies.
well, anyway, all right. So let's move on to our fortune cookie segment. Um, there is I mean, I'm laughing. I don't know if it's funny.
I think it's kind of funny in a like ironic way.
Yes. Okay. So there is an article in the Bookseller, which I think is a UK magazine, maybe online
It
magazine.
seemed like it, yeah.
But the headline is New Indie Press Conduit Books launches with, quote, initial focus on male authors. So the story is basically that this novelist and critic named Jude Cook has launched this new independent press, and this press is going to publish literary fiction and memoir, and they are going to focus on male authors. And so some of the quotes that he says are, there has never been an independent publisher that champions literary fiction by men, which is not to say we won't publish fiction by women in the future, but the emphasis at first will be on male authors. Um, Grace, what did you think when you saw this?
It's yeah. It,
Honestly thought at first it
I
was a
thought it was
joke.
an
Like I thought it
onion.
was an onion.
I thought it was
Yes.
an onion article. And I was like, oh, okay, for realsies. And then, it's part of me feels kind of sad because I realize he's an author as well, and so many authors and illustrators, especially I know in the children's book world when we need diverse books came out, we they kind of felt this story, which we found out was not true, but like the story that like, oh, I'm having a hard time getting published because all like they're publishing Black authors, or publishing Asian authors, or publishing trans authors. So there's no room for me anymore. Um, and so that was the story that they told themselves, and it was a bitter pill for a lot of authors to swallow. But the truth is, which we found out with Linda Sue Park after reading diverse books, that actually was not the case, and it is not the case at all. In fact, publishers, instead of it taking anyone's place, it they just published more books. Like so, the
More of
amount of
everybody.
books, yeah, they just published everyone. So the amount of books by white authors stayed the same, and they just added Black authors, BIPOC authors, and I mean, and that
Well,
caused,
no, I think the number of white authors also increased,
oh,
if
did
I
it? Okay.
remember. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
she
everybody
had this. Yeah,
increased.
everybody increased, but which I think causes a problem in a different way. Like in terms
Right.
of like people trying to get traction for, but in terms of just getting published, that is not what happened. But it felt like such a believable story at the time. Like in a weird way. I remember us talking about it, and we kind of felt like, oh, maybe that is true. Yeah. So, and I feel like that's what's happened to this person,
I
Mr.
mean, I
Park.
think, well, I remember saying I thought that that's what should have happened. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, is
Mm,
we're trying to rebalance, honestly, if we're trying to rebalance the pie, then
uh-huh.
what should happen is that fewer white authors get published and more like, but we were trying to kind of match just like the population of the United States, like the
Uh-huh.
census numbers in a way, right?
Yeah.
Like it was just so overwhelmingly skewed
Yeah.
towards publishing white authors. And I feel like for men and women, I mean, historically, I do think there were no women being published like early on. I mean, you know the few that were published,
Yeah.
at least in the quote unquote canon of classic
Yeah.
books. Um, but he says over the past 15 years, the publishing landscape has changed dramatically as a reaction to the occasionally toxic male-dominated literary scene of the 80s, 90s, and noughties. Not, that's just British, I guess. Literary fiction by women has come into its own. Most of the excitement and energy around new and adventurous fiction is around women authors, and this is only right as a timely corrective. But, now he's saying, but now we have to kind of
Correct it
correct it
back.
again. I don't know. It's very strange.
Very strange.
I was curious though, and I decided to go and look at the adult because this is adult books.
Mhm.
I went to look at the adult bestseller lists, the New York Times bestseller list, and it is true that the bestseller list is very women dominated right now,
Mm, mhm.
which I thought was interesting. But
Is it
he's
literary
writing,
fiction?
well,
That's
so that's the thing. It's like the bestseller list, it's actually a lot of
yeah, that's what I
romanticy,
say. Yeah.
romance, fantasy. And it's the same with young adult. It's true
Yeah.
that young adult is dominated, I would say, by women authors. But if you look at, say, the Pulitzer Prize,
Yeah.
I just did a quick tally, and the Pulitzer, 17 of the last 24 winners were male. So I
Yeah.
I, I think
Because he's
literary
writing,
fiction is
yeah, literary fiction,
still
I think, is
dominated by
still
men.
dominated by men. The New York Times bestseller is because romance and fantasy has just boomed,
Right.
and so that's why, and that's female dominated. I mean, uh, I and I think this is a stereotype, but I feel like it's a true stereotype. I feel like many male authors kind of look down at romance novel, like writing a romance novel. So like,
Mhm.
um, so
I
that's why
also
it's
feel
not.
like, yeah, and also I think, we people say it in children's and YA too, but I think it's true also in adult side is that women will read male characters and male authors, but it's a little more rare that boys or men will read female characters or
Yeah.
female authors. So I don't know. I think
And that's something we need
If
to change, right? That's the whole
we
thing.
definitely need to change. I mean,
Yeah.
apparently that's not the case with picture books. Like little
Yeah.
kids don't care, but I think as they get older, the
Yeah.
kind of divide becomes wider and wider.
It's interesting because I remember having this conversation with Shannon Hale. And, she writes the Princess in Black books, and she was saying how when she does a Princess in Black book signing, there's lots and lots because it's so popular those books, and every once in a while she'll get this, and usually it's girls like a princess, but every once in a while she'll get this boy who's just like, yay, Princess in Black, and he's in like does in like unashamed and she's like, whenever that happens, she always talks to the boy, and she's like, and every single time it's always been because the boy has been homeschooled. Um,
Mm,
and I was like,
right.
oh, it's something to do with like when they get together in a public school or like that they start getting, maybe, I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting observation. She was like, like,
Yeah, that is interesting. Right, because there's the peer pressure or the,
yeah, like they
just
don't like,
social.
yeah, like all of a sudden it's really uncool to read a girl book, or to, like that they have to like
Yeah.
assert their masculinity or something. I don't know. It's just an
Yeah.
interesting thing. But
Well, we will see how this publishing company does. Conduit. I will not be probably reading any of
yeah,
of
I
their
probably
books.
won't be. There's so many other books that I could
Yes.
read, so I might as well read those.
All right. So now we'll end as we always do with what we're grateful for. Grace, what are you grateful for?
So I'm super grateful that this year my backyard is actually really, really pretty. So my best gardening is always right now, like well, the fall, I plant all these bulbs, and right now is like the prettiest time of the year for me as a gardener because that's when all the bulbs come out and there's not really a lot of weeds. Like so it's like, and this year for some reason, the daffodils just did really, really well. And it's just like so pretty, like these bursts of sun of brightness all over the
Mhm.
yard. So I'm really grateful for that. And I'm also really grateful that I feel like I'm in pretty good health. I've been really thinking about this tour a lot, and I'm like, okay. And I feel like, okay, when I had that pain, that arm thing
Mhm.
going on, and
All
I was
right.
thinking about that, like the other day, I was able to carry like groceries both arms, and I was like, huh, I remember when just like doing this hurt so much, like, and like the fact that like that pain is gone now is like pretty amazing, the human body, when you think about that. Like, and I'm like, oh, so I'm really grateful that I'm in good health right in time for this tour because I know I'm going to need it. How about
I
you?
hope you stay strong.
Me too.
You know what? I have this almost the same
Oh,
gratefuls because I too have been enjoying the bursts of color in my back patio, smaller patio. But I have someone who comes and he plants mostly tulips because I love tulips every fall or yeah, fall, winter. And then they're just like, oh my gosh, I have so many. It's so cool and beautiful and I love it. So I'm grateful for flowers and I'm also grateful for my health. I mean,
you just
I
ran a
just
half
felt
marathon.
really yeah, I felt really good doing my half marathon. I have gone running a couple times this week too, this morning, and mainly, again, flowers are getting me outside because I think listeners might remember, or if you follow me on Instagram, like every year there's this little copse of like three cherry blossom trees in Prospect Park by Grand Army Plaza. And I always just like wait for that moment where there are blossoms on the trees, but there are also blossoms on the ground. And then, if it's a little bit windy, then there's also blossoms just like lightly falling down like snow. And it's just the most magical moment. And
Mhm.
so I've been, watching and taking photos of these trees, and they're all in bloom now. And actually, the day of the half marathon, it was really, really windy. So on Monday, no, actually, yeah, Monday I didn't run, but Tuesday I thought I want to go and see because it might be gone. So I went for a run and it was still,
Oh,
mostly on the trees and some on the ground. And then yes, and then I went again this morning and it wasn't that so I'm waiting to go when it's a little bit windy and then it'll be magical. But it is so beautiful. So
flowering trees are so beautiful.
I love them. We have a magnolia tree in the back, and that, like, those fell really quickly, I
Yeah.
feel.
Yeah,
It
we
was
have
really
a
beautiful.
flowering crab apple, and it's so fast. Like it's just like
Yeah.
one day it's like pink, and then it's got like, and if I'm not
Yes.
home, I miss it. So it's
Mono no aware.
like,
Fleeting beauty. All right. And that was the editing middle grade, the Gate, the Girl, and the Dragon episode. Thanks for joining us. And remember, we're taking next week off.
Mhm.
And thanks to Alex at PC Work Studio for editing and producing this podcast. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and tell a friend about us.
And tag us on social media using the hashtag BookFriendsForever, or send us a message via Instagram at BookFriendsForever_podcast, or via our website, BookFriendsForever.com. And please join our Patreon. The link is in the show notes.
I'm Alvina Ling. You can find me at Planet Alvina on TikTok and at Alvina Ling on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads.
And I'm Grace Lin. You can find me at Pacey Lin on Instagram and Threads, and author Grace Lin on Facebook and Blue Sky.
Have a great 2 weeks.
Yes. Happy reading, and
Bye.
get my book. Yay!
Yes.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the After Episode Extra. Here I share quick culture, one of the real-life inspirations behind my middle grade novel, The Gate, the Girl, and the Dragon. Enjoy! Hello, I'm author and illustrator Grace Lin, and this is my new book, The Gate, the Girl, and the Dragon. In this book, you'll meet the Gongsu. Who are the Gongsu? The Gongsu are statue spirits. They are the spirits that are born when statues are carved from a very special stone. You probably want to know, are the Gongsu good spirits? Yes, the Gongsu are very good. Their job is to watch over us humans and to help whenever they can. Now, the Gongsu are invisible to us, but they are able to touch things. They try to push us out of the way of moving cars or keep us from falling when we stumble. Have you ever had a close call? A Gongsu might have saved you. But just like everyone, sometimes Gongsu need a break from their job. And when they do, they go through the old city gate. Now, when we humans go through the gate, we're still on the same busy street in the city. But when the Gongsu go through the gate, they enter a different world. They enter a spirit world where they can rest and relax. The gate is a portal to the world of the Gongsu. Now, the main character in this book is a Gongsu named Jin. He is the spirit of a lion cub statue, one of the stone lions that guard the gate. Jin thinks guarding the gate is boring until one day he accidentally closes it, leaving all the Gongsu trapped in their spirit world and himself stuck in ours. To open the gate again, Jin needs the help of a girl that can hear a mysterious voice and a worm that claims he is a dragon. Will Jin be able to open the gate again? Will he get home? Will the rest of the Gongsu ever be freed? Find out when you read The Gate, the Girl, and the Dragon.